On September 26, 2022, the Nord Stream natural gas pipeline from Russia to Germany was largely destroyed by several explosions in the Baltic Sea. These are the pipelines, the gas pipelines that the Germans had wanted, and the Russians had built multi-billion-dollar pipelines to bring gas from Russia into Germany and Europe. The big question is that who blew up the Nord Stream pipelines? After the explosions back in September, the presumption from the West and Ukraine was that it was the Russians. However, there was no evidence, but they are blaming the Russians for everything since they invaded Ukraine and they're committing all these war crimes. But why would the Russians blow up their own multi-billion-dollar pipelines? On the second week of February this year, Seymour Hersh, an award-winning investigative reporter, published an article based on information from a single anonymous source, arguing that the Biden administration and the CIA were responsible. Hersh won the Pulitzer Prize in 1970 for the role he played in breaking the story of My Lai Massacre, an incident in which U.S. soldiers killed between 300 and 500 unarmed civilians. In an article published by Jacobin, Hersh had an interview with Fabian Skidler for Jacobin about the allegations he made in his most recent article and the influence that the CIA and the national security state has on American foreign policy. Hersh said that, quote-unquote, it was just a story that was begging to be told. In late September of 2022, 8 bombs were supposed to go off. 6 went up under the water near the island of Bornholm in the Baltic Sea, in the area where it is rather shallow. They destroyed 3 of the 4 major pipelines in the Nord Stream 1 and 2. Nord Stream 1 has been feeding gas fuel to Germany for many years at very low prices, and then both pipelines were blown up. And the question was why and who did it. On February 7, 2022, in the build-up to the war in Ukraine, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, at a press conference at the White House with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, said that we can stop Nord Stream. Hersh laid out the story from the beginning, chronologically from December 21, when the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, convened a meeting of the newly formed task force from the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the CIA, the State, and the Treasury Departments. Hersh writes Sullivan intended for the group to come up with a plan for the destruction of the 2 Nord Stream pipelines. He also stated in his article published on his Substack newsletter that in early 2022, the CIA working group reported back to Sullivan's interagency group, and they said, "We have a way to blow up the pipelines." I am Lovely Montoya of Manila STV.